Hey folks, this is Rhykker with the Diablo 3 Season 27 Barbarian build guide. This guide is for the Legacy of Dreams Hammer of the Ancients Barbarian, which will be one of the most powerful builds in Season 27. This guide is brought to you in collaboration with expert Barbarian player Rob from the Maxroll team. This is his top skill footage you're seeing in the background, and you'll be able to follow along with the written guide that he's going to put out on Maxroll in time for the season start. Now overall, the Legacy of Dreams Hammer of the Ancients Barbarian build doesn't change a whole lot from past seasons. However, with the introduction of Sanctified items in Season 27, these new super powerful items, this build rockets up in power, and it can actually make significant use of 2 out of the 3 Barbarian Sanctified items. You see, in Season 27, things will drop called Angelic Crucibles. These are similar to Ramalandi's gifts. You take them and you apply them to an item. That will transform the item into a sanctified item. That re-rolls the item into primal level stats, so all maxed out stats. And it will apply one of 3 special sanctified powers that will depend on your class. So in this video, we're going to talk about which sanctified powers you're going to want to use. We're going to cover the skills, the gear, the playstyle, everything you need to rock this build. So we'll kick things off with the gear. Again, this is a Legacy of Dreams build. That means you need the Legacy of Dreams Legendary Gem. You're not going to equip any sets. However, the Season 27 starter set for Barbarian is Wrath of the Wastes, so you start off with the classic Whirlwind Barbarian. Nothing new there. Still very strong. Still going to be very easy to farm up this build with that. With Legacy of Dreams, while you have no set bonuses equipped, every legendary item you have equipped increases your damage dealt and reduces your damage taken by a certain amount, and that amount is doubled for ancient items. Now, apart from that, there's some other key gear that we want here, because again, this is a Hammer of the Ancients build, so we will need the Bracers of the First Men. Hammer of the Ancients attacks 50% faster and deals 500% increased damage. Essential item here. We'll also need the Gavel of Judgment. This is a two-handed mighty weapon. The damage of Hammer of the Ancients is increased by 800%, and it returns 25 Fury if it hits 3 or fewer enemies. Another key piece of gear. Those are our main Hammer of the Ancient multipliers, but we're going to work in other gear to empower this build. Because we're going to be picking the Fire Rune on Hammer of the Ancients, we're going to take a Cinder Coat. This gives us another 20% fire damage and reduces the resource cost of fire skills by 30%. We're also going to want to turbocharge our attack speed. We want to bring the hammers down fast. So we work in an Echoing Fury Mace. Slaying enemies engulfs the wielder into a frenzy. This is going to translate into a 75% increased attack speed bonus. Next, we're going to want to take, for defensive purposes, a Band of Might. Critical item for barbarians for defense. After casting Furious Charge, Ground Stomp, or Leap, take 80% reduced damage for 8 seconds. Because of this, you'll want to work one of those powers into this build. Which one isn't super critical? The gameplay footage you're seeing is using Leap. Previously, we would use Ground Stomp for grouping enemies. We don't need to use that anymore because of the Sanctified power, and we'll explain why in a bit. Another key piece of gear, Mortix Brace. Wrath of the Berserker gains the effect of every rune. Wrath of the Berserker is a huge, powerful skill for barbarians. Getting every rune makes it even better. More damage, more toughness, and because we're going to want to maximize our uptime on Wrath of the Berserker, we're going to take an Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. We are going to be spamming the heck out of our like we're not playing Diablo. Spamming the hell out of our hammers. So we're going to be getting that cooldown real fast. Next, we're going to take a Remorseless Legendary One-Handed Mighty Weapon. While both Wrath of the Berserker and Call of the Ancients are active, Hammer of the Ancients deals a bunch more damage. This is another multiplier, so we're going to need to work both Call of the Ancients and Wrath of the Berserker into this build and keep their uptime up as much as possible. And because we're going to have Call of the Ancients up, we'll take the Fury of the Ancients Shoulders. Call of the Ancients gains the effect of the Ancients Fury rune, and your Ancients attack 100% faster. Ancients aren't dealing damage. However, your Ancients, whenever they hit, they're going to generate Fury for you, so them attacking faster makes them regenerate your resources faster. We round things out with a convention of elements. Is it critical? I know a lot of people don't like the playstyle. To be perfectly optimal, yes, you do want to ideally be when you are in your fire window, bringing down the hammers. However, This isn't a super timing-based build. If you want to just set it and forget it, you can do so. Meaning you benefit from the increased damage when it's up, and when it's not, you don't. But again, if you really want to play optimally, if you want to push leaderboards, push as far as you want to go, just be sure that when you're in your fire window, you are bringing down hammers. You are ready to be bringing down hammers. Now, other gear will also supplement us here, but these aren't as critical. For a belt, we're going to take a Witching Hour simply because it's the most DPS-focused belt. We got attack speed on it. We got crit chance on it. We're going to take Blackthorn's pants. Yes, it's a set item, but we're not benefiting from a set bonus. Just one set item. It's okay. Why? Because Blackthorns rolls with elemental damage. Make sure you get Blackthorns with fire damage on it. We're going to take a Leoric's crown. Why? This is going to increase the effect of gems put in there. We're going to put a diamond in there. That's going to give us a whole lot more cooldown in order to have more uptime on our abilities. We're going to take some Ice Climber boots. Gain immunity to freeze and immobilize effects. Just a bit more protection there. We're going to take Stone Gauntlets. Getting hit increases your armor by 50%, but reduces your movement speed by 15% and attack speed by 20%. This effect stacks up to 5 times. This is a terrible nerf to us. However, Wrath of the Berserker breaks any crowd control that is applied to us, including from Stone Gauntlets. So we nullify the negative effect of Stone Gauntlets by being in Wrath of the Berserker and only benefit from the positive effects. If you are not yet geared, if you are not yet at a point of maintaining your Wrath of the Berserker, you don't want to be wearing Stone Gauntlets. Lastly, we're going to take a Squirt's Necklace. While not taking damage, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%, and damage taken is increased by up to 50%. This makes us a bit squishier at the expense of dealing a lot more damage. Now lastly, for the Sanctified power, we're going to want to go for the Sanctified Whirlwind power, which makes Whirlwind pull in and hold all enemies within 25 yards. You might wonder, well, hold on, why not the Sanctified Hammer of the Ancients power, which makes Hammer of the Ancients hit in all directions, which is a really cool effect, and then every 10th cast, which will happen fast because we're bringing down those hammers fast, will unleash a powerful shockwave. That is a viable option, and for speedruns, that's what's recommended, but for GR pushing, the pull of the Whirlwind is so powerful. Being able to group a big density of enemies together into one tiny spot and bring down your hammer and be striking all those enemies at once and letting the area damage hit them all and propagate throughout this big group of tightly knit enemies is so strong for Greater Rift pushing. Now, you could only have one Sanctified item equipped at a time, so you want to pick which item do I want to max the stats on by making into a primal. So you ideally want to pick an item that rolls with a range, a wide range, in order to get that maximum range. So for instance, on your Remorseless, the range of the legendary multiplier is 600 to 800. Make it primal, it's always going to be 800, and the damage range of the weapon itself will be maxed. So I'd say weapon is your number one choice to sanctify, with your second choice being the Bracers of the First Men, because those also roll on quite a range, 375 to 500. Now before we go over what we want on every piece of gear, we'll first take a look at our skills. We're taking Hammer of the Ancients Smash as our main damage dealer. Hammer of the Ancients gains 1% extra crit chance for every 5 Fury we have. Thanks to our Ancients giving us back so much resource, we're often going to be close to maxed out on Fury. We're going to take Call of the Ancients together as one, as that's going to give us 50% damage reduction. To trigger our Band of Might, we're going to take Furious Charge. This lets us zip along and explore a rift more rapidly. We're taking Wrath of the Berserker and gaining all runes. We'll take Battle Rage Bloodshed as a big damage buff. This increases our chance to crit, and when we do crit, we are spreading bubbles of crit damage around, which makes it even more important to group enemies together. Then lastly, we're taking Whirlwind Dust Devils. Now, Whirlwind is so that we can be, one, grouping enemies thanks to the Sanctified power, but even without it, it's just a convenient way to move through enemies, to navigate through the rift, and to try to herd enemies together. In GR pushing, when it's taking long to beat a rift, you're looking at efficiency, and efficiency means not just going and fighting 3 monsters at a time. It means trying to gather up a whole screen of monsters into one tight space and bring down the hammer. We're taking Dust Devils because those little twisters will further trigger Bane of the Stricken. This is specifically for the Rift Guardian. For our passives, we're taking Rampage. This increases your strength by 1% for 8 seconds after killing or assisting in killing an enemy, stacking up to 25 times for a 25% strength buff, which is huge. This is damage and toughness. We're taking the Boon of Bulkathos. This reduces the cooldown of Call of the Ancients by 30 seconds and Wrath of the Berserker by 30 seconds. We need this to get as much uptime as possible on those skills. We're going to take Berserker Rage. You deal 25% additional damage while near max fury. Again, this should be almost always. For your final passive, if you have some wiggle room, the Barbarian has a number of really good passives. If you want that extra life, take Nerves of Steel. If you want a big damage buff, go with Ruthless. You deal 40% additional damage to enemies below 30% health. This really helps finish off enemies. But you can also go with Brawler. As long as there are 3 enemies within 12 yards, all your damage is increased by 20%. For speed content, Brawler is a good option. For finishing off that Rift Guardian, Ruthless is very helpful. As for exactly what we want on every piece of gear, for your shoulders, strength, cooldown, area damage, all resist. Your helm, strength, crit chance, Hammer of the Ancients damage, Diamond Within. Your amulet, fire damage, crit chance, crit damage. Your chest, fire damage, strength, vitality, diamonds in your chest and pants for more toughness. Your gloves, crit chance, crit damage, area damage, cooldown. Your bracers, fire damage, strength, vitality, crit chance. Belt, strength, vitality, attack speed, crit damage. Your pants, fire damage, strength, vitality, all resist. Your boots, strength, vitality, all resist, reduces damage from cold. Hammer of the Ancients damage. For your rings, crit chance, crit damage, then either area damage or raw damage. For your weapons, you want cooldown on at least 1, ideally area damage on both. You can get attack speed on 1, you can get strength, you can get percent damage. You just want to make sure that overall you are hitting 40 to 50% cooldown reduction. This will ensure 100% uptime on Wrath of the Berserker and Call of the Ancients in combination with your Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. For your legendary gems, apart from the Legacy of Dreams, you want a Bane of the Trapped. This gives us a big damage bonus against enemies that are crowd controlled, and once you get it to level 25, it automatically applies a crowd control aura around us. And then of course we're taking a Bane of the Stricken for GR pushing in order to quickly finish off the Rift Guardian. Well, not quickly, to more rapidly finish off the Rift Guardian. 25% increased damage against that Rift Guardian, and the more you attack an enemy, the more you build up a damage buff against them. For your Paragon points, max out move speed, then max out max fury. Remember, the higher our fury, the more damage we deal. If you're feeling squishy, you can also add to vitality. We recommend at least 750,000 life, then everything into strength. For offense, cooldown reduction, then crit chance and crit damage, then attack speed. For defense, all resist, life, armor, life regen. For utility, area damage, resource cost reduction, pickup radius, life per hit. For your follower, briefly, you'd be looking to give them the invulnerability token. Then other key pieces of gear include Nemesis Bracers. This emanates to us, so when we click on a pylon, that's going to spawn a champion pack. We're going to want to give them a Flavor of Time. Emanates to us. Pylon effects twice as long, so powerful in a Greater Rift. We'll want to give them an Oculus Ring. Chance to create an area of focused power on killing a monster. Damage is increased by 85% while standing in the area. So you will ideally try to stand in those golden pools and group enemies to you there when you bring down your hammers. The rest of the gear isn't as critical. However, in this patch, the Guardian set has received a buff. The 2-piece doubles the strength, dex, vitality, and intelligence that we get from equipped items. Followers already benefit more from these stats than we do. So because it's going to be so important to get intelligence on your Enchantress, because all of her abilities will scale based on her intelligence, working in 2 pieces of Guardians now will help you blast that intelligence even more. For the specific skills you'll want to take on her, take Temporal Pulse for the slow, Prophetic Harmony for the cooldown, Powered Shield for the damage reduction and armor, and Focused Mind for the attack speed. Thereafter, just stack as much intelligence on her as possible. This is so that you can maximize those effects. Now for the gameplay, always start by casting your Call of the Ancients, then your Battle Rage Bloodshed, keep those up at all times. Cast Charge at least once every 8 seconds to maintain that defensive buff. Then move around with Whirlwind. This is going to be your mobility skill. And when you're ready to start bringing down the hammers, then you cast Wrath of the Berserker. Always be spending your Fury. This is going to be resetting your cooldowns, so Whirlwind and Hammers. Try to group up as many enemies as possible before bringing down the hammer. Now, if you're feeling like you're lacking toughness, you can swap out Furious Charge for Leap Iron Impact, which will give you an armor buff for 4 seconds after you've leapt. You can also consider swapping out Cinder Coat for Aquila Cuirass. This will give us 50% damage reduction while we're near max resource. If you do, however, probably best to swap out Berserker Rage passive for Weapons Master. Mighty Weapons will give us 2 Fury per hit. This will ensure that we will always have our Aquila in effect. Now, if you want to adopt this build for speed runs, we're going to change out the Bane of the Stricken for a Zaeith's Stone of Vengeance. This makes us deal an increasingly large amount of damage to enemies the further they are away from us. And this is because we'll also want to swap the Sanctified Power to the Hammer of the Ancients one. That's going to send out those massive shockwaves that will just demolish things on screen. In this case, you would also want to swap out Rampage for Brawler to get that 20% damage buff as long as there are 3 enemies within 12 yards. If you're having a hard time keeping up your Squirt's Necklace buff, you can pop in a Molten Wildebeest Gizzard instead of a Zaeith's Stone of Vengeance. After not taking damage for 4 seconds, you gain an Absorb Shield. And as long as it's the Absorb Shield taking damage, that does not trigger your squirts. And that is going to wrap up this video. But remember, do refer to maxroll.gg for the full written guide that'll be kept up to date throughout the season and in perpetuity. Otherwise, stay tuned for more Diablo guides as well as the upcoming tier list video. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.